lotteries. It was just weird ways that they would, because they didn't want to seem like, they didn't want to look like drafting, but they needed people to have a fight, and they couldn't do both, and so they tried to make it seem like they weren't really doing either one. Line number 15 is...
Can I just make a comment on that?
Sure.
It used to be when I was a teenager, if you joined the National Guard, it was to be here in Utah,
Yeah.
to be present here in case there, it was our
And they still
militia.
advertise it that way.
Right, yes. When my sons went I was invited not to, went to kind of check this out, whether to join, they were told that things have changed so that they are prioritizing the National Guard to
If
go.
they wanted to stay here, get in the Army. Don't get in the
Yeah,
reserve.
get in the Army, don't get in the National
Active
Guard.
duty.
Yeah, so they deliberately move our National Guard.
You want to stay here
overseas.
in active duty?
Yeah,
Yeah, just get in the regular
It's
Army.
true.
so it's been so
It's true.
distorted. So
Bizarre.
It's true.
And yet the ads they're running for the National Guard are all about helping with natural disasters in your community. And I'm like, oh no, sign up for the National Guard, you'll end up in Afghanistan, and
That's
Syria.
right.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah. And the ones here are being armed for urban warfare for some strange reason. I don't know what they're
Yeah, imagine that.
planning there. But-
That's true.
So
The
it's
National
pretty
Guard is
usually worked.
the first ones that they send out of places. Line number 15 is we don't torture. And one of the first things he says was, President Bush got up and said, we don't torture, and shock, he lied. Because
Shock.
yeah, he was surrounded by some pretty crazy people. And that wasn't true, because sometimes you have to, people do things that are so bad that you have to kind of show them what they're doing, I guess. Does that make sense? Kind of, you have, some people only speak one language. And sometimes it's just being stern. Sometimes it is, you have to get them to be relaxed first. Sometimes you have to use force. It just depends. But some people only speak one language, and so you have to show them that you're willing to speak that language to get your point across. Sometimes it can be some pretty bad stuff. Line number 16 is the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects shall not be violated. This is just completely, just thrown in the trash can. Because you'll see, or you'll hear stories at least about how police will go and they'll do things that they aren't usually supposed to do, and sometimes it's some of the head people in the police who are doing some of the worst stuff. They're going in and encouraging the other officers, and so then some of the other officers don't really have a choice. And there's a lot of examples about how police go and completely ignore the fact that they're there to protect, and that the government is the citizens' employees. That the citizen should be able to say, no thank you, you're fired. But a lot of people don't understand, I guess, and so then the government has to step in and take control for the people who don't understand. And so then when there's people who don't understand and they refuse to learn, then they make it worse for everybody. Line number 17 is America has a free market. We kind of talked about that a little bit earlier. And it's just kind of I don't know how I want to say this. It's different than it seems, I guess, is what I want to say. Because people will look outside and they see all this pretty stuff, and they'll see buildings and cars and parks, and they'll think, oh, everything is all happy and wonderful. But it's not really. And that kind of, you have to go down to the basic economy. When there's more money around, it becomes less valuable. Just that will help. And if they would just want to see that, then they would understand. I went to Master of Influence, and he had us write speeches, and that's what mine was on. Is people don't know and they don't care. They don't listen, because it makes it harder for everybody else that does care. And so, that's this book, Lies the Government Told You. The subtitle is Myth, Power, and Deception in American History. And on the back, he talks a little bit about how obviously the government's going to have to tell one line or two every once in a while, because there's some people who don't understand, and so we'll have to cover for them. And I'm not sure that's necessarily 100% true, but it probably is true a lot of the time. And I just wish people would pay more attention. So I guess I'm done. That's his book.
It's all about paying attention, isn't it?
Well, I guess we have a little more time. Does anyone have any comments or further things from Landon's presentation, or back
Yes.
to something that another question someone wanted to bring up?
It's just one thing that, first when you mentioned about the lady who had her property taken, that actually happened here up in the Salt Lake County back when we lived in Midvale. There was a big battle over some county territory that Sandy and Murray and Midvale were all battling over. And in all of this, right at that time, there was a Harmon's and kind of a strip mall, small area. But they wanted to expand it and make it a major market, economic area. And so they started wanting to take property. And right behind Harmon's, there was this whole area that had been basically semi-rural. There was just a lot of trees and kind of still small farm garden areas. And a particular family had lived there since back in the 1800s. And so the city came in, and Sandy and the county came in and declared what's called eminent domain, which says if they can prove that something is
For the
blight, yeah, but still it's part of eminent domain, but if it's blighted, then they can come in. But the problem is that they twisted it, because you can't have a blighted area that's never been any better than it was. Nobody had ever made it improved, and it hadn't then become blighted from being improved. It was just open country area that had never been improved. And so anyway, they didn't care. So they went in, and they eventually, the county were able to take over the property, but this one man wouldn't move.
My friend's
Father, and so they built around it. They couldn't get him out, and so we went and visited his house once.
So why could they blight part of the property, but they couldn't?
Well, they tried to
couldn't
blight his. He
control
just
him.
fought it. Somehow he won, and they dropped his part of it, but they took everything else. And so you would drive down the road to his place and go in, and you'd come back into this fence, closed-in area. You turn the corner. There was this big wall about maybe 50 feet from his house on the back of these stores, which had changed from used to be just trees and an open property. And so it was right there. But they didn't stop fighting, and eventually they won. And I never heard what happened from that. They probably just got a lot of money. The store, they were going to have to tear down the store because it was too close to his property.
It was probably.
But it took a
So
lot.
he
His
won
daughter,
eventually.
yeah,
You
his
said they, I thought
daughter
you
was a
talked
lawyer,
about-
and she kept fighting. It was Kathleen's friend. And she kept fighting it until they won. And so at the last point we heard, there was a judgment that said the developers were going to have to tear down the store.
That's awesome.
So they probably ended up getting a payoff of some
Yeah,
sort.
they did.
Yeah. But those
He
things,
had
that's
died by
just,
then, the grandpa had
yeah,
died.
he had died.
The
and-
family had.
But that was just
Tried to hold
a real life situation showing how much it happens.
Yes, interesting.
That's kind of how
That
it was.
eminent domain.
Yeah.
Well, and
Makes my
the whole
blood
thing
red.
about your person. So my sister went to a chiropractor and was wanting to have adjustment, and they said, we can't, how did it go?
Can't treat anybody that's on Medicare.
Can't treat anybody that's on Medicare, and then she said, I want to pay cash for this. I'm a private person, I just want to pay cash for these services. They said, we'll get in trouble. We cannot We cannot provide the service for
The
you.
thing that bothers me about that, we can't treat
Oh,
anyone that's on
wow.
Medicare is, it's required. Once you're a senior citizen, you don't have a choice. I remember my grandfather was just livid when I was in nursing school. He said, I don't have a choice. I'm forced to be on Medicare. I could pay for my own services. They won't allow it. And then
And then to deny them services.
They denied,
because-
they had, that doctor had to deny services to my sister because she was over a certain age.
Well, I have an
yeah,
aunt.
and that's all it takes is over a certain age because everyone
Yeah.
is required to have Medicare.
She fell from some stairs in her house and hurt her back very seriously. And the doctor told her, you know, behind closed doors, don't tell anybody this. There was a treatment that they could have used for her that would have mostly fixed her problems. Totally reversed it, but he couldn't give it to her because of her age.
When was that?
This was 2 years ago,
Was it 2
just,
years ago?
just as Obamacare had passed
Yeah.
and not been implemented fully, but in anticipation of the regulations, they were told they could not do this operation for her because she was too old because of Medicare and Obamacare.
Well, and there's just,
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, it's
just a
really-
regulation on doctors. It's all about money. See, it's taken medical instead of being about healing people. It's now about how much money does it cost?
Oh, yeah.
And how do we get the money from here to here properly? And how do we not spend